So, who are you?
I'm Farooq Chaudhry. I'm the producer for Akram Khan Company and also co-founder. I founded the company in, spiritually I would say 1999, formally in 2000 with Akram Khan, and I've been working with him now for 16 years. I'm also the producer for the English National Ballet, which I started in 2013, and just currently now also working with some big Chinese performing arts organisations. So yeah, that's who I am. I was born in Pakistan. I came to England in 1963. I was born in 1960. My parents were immigrants, came over. My dad, we had a tremendously difficult first 10 years. For some curious reason, my father decided to live in an area which was all white in the 60s, which was very difficult. And there was a lot of conflict, there was a lot of racism, a lot of abuse. But curiously enough, I think it shaped me. I mean, it gave me a lot of things about how to cross a bridge, deal with conflicts, deal with things that seem impossible to overcome. So that's Farooq, I think. You know, that's Farooq who's learned to use those things and equip myself to take that understanding and that wisdom and that experience and kind of transform it into my work.
What sparked your interest in dance?
You know, I've got an answer to this, but it took me a long time to find it, and I only just found it recently. You know, as a kid, my parents were both Philistines. My dad was a maths professor, never took us to theatre, and my mum just worked in a factory, and we didn't have any arts exposure whatsoever. And for some strange reason, my sister and myself became dancers, professional dancers. Now, somehow, I know when I do it, it makes me feel free. It makes me feel expressive. Dance is one of those curious things where you lose yourself and find yourself exactly at the same time. And it's a wonderful kind of state of being. Now, why I chose it is difficult to say, but someone said to me, because probably when I dealt with all that difficult racism and stuff, it was one of the things where there were colour, those barriers of class, colour, you know, whatever, weren't really in the way. So maybe deep down I chose it for that reason, but I first fell in love with dance when I loved dancing in clubs when I was like 13, 14, and in a way there was something about the hero, working class hero coming through dance. It was a little place where you become special and, you know, and do something. And then I think it started a little bit like this. And then when I went to Sadler's Wells when I was 17 years old, you know, one of the teachers where I went to school said, "You should see something different." Went into Sadler's Wells, walked in, a man came on stage, moved like a god, danced like a swan, had poetry, power, grace. I'd never seen that in another human being before. I was smitten. That was my moment. So that's when I wanted to dance. When I actually was able to dance was 4 years later when I went to Sussex University to do an English degree and took my very first dance class, walked out, said to the dean, "Gonna leave, pay back my fees, I want to be a dancer," after an hour's worth of dancing. So that's another, you want to know who Farooq is? You're getting to understand the man, impulsive, and I just trust that moment so strongly, it almost becomes a powerful urge. The truth is, like, I was put on care when I was 14. I was a juvenile delinquent, breaking into houses, stealing cars, you know, completely out of control. You know, and I ended up being assigned to a social worker at 14. Went to a place called Pepper House at 15 to 21, which used sort of psychotherapeutic education to kind of get us to play again, to understand our creativity. So dance also grew out of that sensation, that experience. And then I had a career, and then really lovely career, and then I wanted to, and I mean, you know, when I was at university and wanted to dance, I made a dance union which started with 20, only a room for 20, and made it room for 400, because I took my entrepreneurial spirit and made it bigger so more people could have access. So Dance UK, my role as the chair of Dance UK was really as an advocacy body for the professional sector, for people to be able to get membership services, support, guidance. But yeah, I mean, I love anyone dancing. Everyone should dance.
And you said something on leaving Dance UK. Progress sometimes hurts and sometimes creates tension.
Yeah. Well, the thing is, the reason why I left Dance UK, which was last year, was that, you know, as you know, in the papers, there was me and two other colleagues from the sector who were employers of dancers, and been really unhappy about the fact that, you know, for the last few years we've not been able to, when dancers turn up for auditions, the British dancers aren't at the same level as the international ones. They just weren't good enough, not fit enough, not technically competent, and I would say sadly, just not fired up. You know, and I can't believe it's that, because I know anyone who loves dance when they're young has this passion. So we went to the schools and addressed it. We felt the schools, the way they were teaching, wasn't sufficiently equipping them for the sector or for work. And they were seeing it as education instead of training. So we needed progress, we needed change, we needed it for us, we needed it for them, we needed it for the art form. And we made a big noise about it. It hurt a lot of people, but ultimately we went into some wonderful constructive conversations with all the schools, and there have been changes implemented which we're helping to assist with. So it's a good thing, but it hurts. It hurt at the time, and we didn't want to do that. We tried a much more political, diplomatic approach through lots of conversations, but sometimes we need a little bit of a shake-up.
Are you mentoring anybody at the moment?
I'm always mentoring people. I'm always mentoring young dancers and artists. I love it because, it's the next generation. It's the next talent pool. They're going to make me happy in the future. They're going to make other people. I'm selfish. I want great art. I see great art. I'm happy. It makes me feel inspired and feel happy to be part of it. So it's lovely to see, I've worked with some young Indian artists and also some other British artists, at the early part of their career, and I love it. I love just help them to discover the source of their talent and kind of help them to kind of be confident enough and courageous enough to unlock it.
In the same way that you have been with your career, spontaneous, maybe impulsive, I don't know.
Yeah.
Are you that way when you see a new talent? Do you see in an instant that there's talent there? Is it immediate?
Akram Khan is a perfect story there. I mean, when I finished dancing, I was working as a trainee dance manager, and it was a contract for only a couple of years. And one of the things I was told is that while I'm there, I've got to build a portfolio of artists that I could end up working with once I left. So I was always going to theatre looking at shows, and I ended up at the South Bank in summer of '99, and I saw a young man, 24 years old, and I thought, I just was completely blown away. I was overwhelmed. That young man was Akram Khan. And after I saw him, I went backstage and got round there and started talking to him, and I said, look, I was totally blown away and impressed by the way you move, your language, and honestly, I see the future. I see you as representatives, and he was a little bit taken aback because it was quite a bold statement to make, and I wanted to get to know him more. We spoke to each other more, and then I said, look, I really want to work with you because not only because I feel I could take you somewhere, but you'll be able to take me somewhere. And that's the moment we started working together. Now that was back in September '99, 16, 17 years later. Akram is one of the greatest global talents, dance talents, around.
How would you describe his choreography, the type of productions that both you and he produce, as distinct from anything else in the world?
Well, the thing is, they evolved over time. I mean, I think that in essence, I think what Akram is more storyteller than a choreographer. And I think that makes him stand out. And I think he speaks of many worlds in one instant. And I think, though he comes from a North Indian classical art form and he's Bangladeshi and I'm Pakistani, it's easy to go with the South Asian company, but we did not want to be trapped in that label. So I think there's a wonderful storytelling universality about it that kind of represents, a fluidity. The movement feels very masculine and female, feels very classical and modern, it feels very Asian and Western, it feels very spiritual and earthly. I think it's the kind of, those opposites melded into something, which is greater than the sum of its parts, really. So, and what I love a lot about the work we do is whenever we take it anywhere in the world, even though, I don't know if you ever saw the production Desh, which is very autobiographical.
No, I haven't seen that one. I saw Dust recently.
Oh, Dust, yeah. Amazing as well. I mean, and in a way there's an example of where he's taken the classical art form and kind of almost redefined the notion of corps de ballet from a very Indian influence-inspired movement. But Desh was this very autobiographical work which won an Olivier. Really wonderful work, very set in Bangladesh kind of as a context and him growing up. But we took it to Japan, we took it to Colombia, and people said, that's my story. And then when you've got a great piece of art.
As far as a third-party comment about the Akram Khan Company is concerned, is there one quote that you have heard from a third party that you feel summarises everything? I mean, I read one recently, which was that they were talking about Dust, that it sears itself on the memory.
Wow, yes. And I think one comment we hear a lot, and it's really simple, it really moves us without knowing why.
What's the biggest idea that you've worked on? The one that both the biggest idea and the one that you are most proud of?
It's
why?
Yeah, that's a really that's a tough and unfair question because, in life, you accumulate ideas. There's no one big idea. What was the big idea in 1999 is not the same big idea as in 2008 and then 2012 and so on. Because you equip yourself to take on the next big idea. So what was the big idea when we first started? It felt huge because it's taking on something which feels virtually impossible to overcome. And then trying to make sense of it and trying to find a kind of a logic and a beauty within it and a truth. And every big idea has to be kind of embodied with truth, and I think that's essential. So, but if you really want to talk about scale, I mean, it's got to be the Olympic Games. The opening ceremony where we worked, we had 80,000 people in the stadium, we had 2 billion people on television, we had only 5 minutes to create a piece. We had 50 dancers. We only did it once, so we had to get it right once. It was seared on the memory forever. And it was frightening and exhilarating at the same time. It was quite, and we've never done that. We've had to kind of take something and that we do in the proscenium theatre for 1,000, 1,200, and then suddenly make it expand into a big space and make it be moving, and it did. I mean, I think we honestly, generally, I feel, when people watched it, they were really moved. And actually, it was beautiful because there was a brief by Danny Boyle. He says, I want, at the end of the ceremony, for everyone to understand the notion of our mortality. That no matter how superhuman we are, we will return to dust. We will return to the beginning. And then will come out that these superheroes, athletes, would come out afterwards. And it was a moment for kind of almost universal reflection. That was definitely the biggest idea at that time, in the last 16 years. But what we're proud of, I mean, Dash I'm proud of, Dust I'm proud of, Olympics I'm proud of, the very first piece proud of. In the beginning actually, and the very first work we did was more like a sketch, and it showed our potential. It didn't really show the big idea, it showed the potential for the big idea. And we knew that. And then the second piece we did, a piece called Karsh, which was a big idea. It was a collaboration with Anish Kapoor and Nitin Sawhney. So you had these kind of greats from music and sculpture and dance working together, and it was a lot of noise about it, a lot of expectation. Now, when we opened the piece, Akram was young, and the weight of expectation crushed him. So when the piece opened and the world's promoters descended in France, came to France to watch it, they all walked away and said, "Nah, not for us. Doesn't work." He was a one-hit wonder. And that was really devastating, and Akram particularly was crestfallen. Next morning I woke up and says, right, forget him. Just look at what we did. We know that it wasn't right. We know we were too nervous, too paralyzed by the expectation. Let's just get back, objectify the problem and look at it. So we worked for another 6 weeks. We went back into theatre and we looked at the piece, inch by inch to correct it. The music, the lights, and that's what we wanted, but we couldn't. Now we changed it. And then I rang up all those promoters again. I said, you don't often in life get a second chance, but give us one. Come and see it again. Trust me, I think it's infinitely better. They came back and fell in love with it. Now that was a big idea. That was the moment that transformed us, that saved us, that set us off on this pathway to where we are today. It was that failure that came from the big idea that took us to the great idea.
You've got another big production coming out in April, Giselle, the English National Ballet, I believe. Could you tell us a little bit about that? Yeah,
I mean, it's actually coming out in September in Manchester. So, it was a Tamara, who I work with as well, Akram admires, the artistic director of the English National Ballet. Giselle was one of the most revered ballets, and because of the success of Dust, how Akram could almost reinterpret the classical art form, he wanted Akram to tackle one of the big, revered ballets, the one which is in the canon of dance, and you could get shot down if you get it wrong, actually. So it's quite a challenge, and so we are working with it, and Akram's assembled a team of not the usual suspects which would take on the ballet. So he's worked with Tim Yip, for the Chinese visual artist who won the Oscar for Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon, to do the scenery. He's working with Ben Frost, who's this kind of Australian but working in Iceland, kind of very soundscape type of composer, to kind of treat the original score elements of it and maybe rewrite bits. So that's dangerous. We've got we're working with the 2-act ballet format, but we're looking at it completely different. And at this stage, the idea is we're looking at, because of Giselle as a story, this is where we look at. Giselle was the peasant girl, the one who was ostracised, left out. So we felt that if we're going to put that into modern context, we'd use the notion of modern migration, the migrants who are being left on the other side, and the people who have and the people who don't have. And so we have this kind of set, which I'm not going to give away yet, but which actually really clearly kind of demarcates that issue. So it's challenging. It's probably the biggest production EMB have ever done. So everyone's reputations are on the line. So, you've got Akram, you've got EMB, you've got Tamara, but there's a lot of goodwill. There's an incredible collective focus for this to make it work. I mean, EMB have completely broken their rules in terms of how they work. Usually if they have a choreographer working, they'll have to work alongside other people. They've cleared out their schedule for Akram to work exclusively with the company. And for a long period of time, with a really good budget, with the research and development. So let's see. I mean, we don't know.
Do you have anything else in your sights in terms of huge projects, big ambitions with Akram that you are allowed to talk about now?
Oh, gosh. Oh, no, I'm a little bit trapped here on this one. We've always talked about doing bigger projects together. I feel like, reinvention is an important part of looking for big ideas if we're going to keep that theme going, and it's very easy to become comfortable and feel like, we've just had a work called Until the Lines, which has been a huge success, which is done the round, and that was almost a transformation. We've got to keep ourselves feeling a little bit scared, because the big ideas come from a little bit from fear and feeling that how do you overcome the problem. So yes, scale would be great, but even something really simple. We've got these very lavish productions now. Why do we not do a piece a big idea where we create a piece where there's no lights, there's no costumes, there's a simple stage, it's there, 5 performers do something really pure.
To change things.
To change the way,
disrupt things.
Disrupt the things, because I think it involves disruption. Transformation involves almost taking the skin off what you were so the new person can emerge. And it's very easy to stay trapped within your old skin forever because you build up a reputational value about yourself. And actually the big ideas become harder the bigger you get. Because the big ideas are big because you feel small when you start, if you know what I mean. By that scaling of yourself to where you perceive yourself to what you want to do, it suddenly changes. And there's no mountains bigger than Everest. So all you can do is climb it differently in a more difficult way.
You're also the creative producer of the English National Ballet. How did that all come about?
Well, I think, Tamara, actually, it was a lovely story, because, Tamara and I met on a rural retreat back in 2008 for, leaders in the dance world, and I met this amazing woman who, I think she was early 30s then, who had big ambitions. Wow, and you know what she says? It was so conviction. I believe she's going to do it. And at that stage, she was just a dance. She wasn't just a dance. She was a soloist with the Royal, but she had this idea to change how ballet companies worked if she ever ran one. And then I found out, a few years later, this woman's been given the tenure of the English National Ballet. I thought, right, there she goes. So the first thing, one of the things she asked was me to come and speak to her board about how things could be shaken up in terms of practice and they really liked some of my suggestions. And then they approached me and said, would you help us put together a job for a producer? Because I think you need a producer. You don't need managers. You need someone who has that kind of, that space between the art and the money and the market, who gets that relationship. So, and I said, you know what, Tamara, because I think you're special and you got a vision. Why don't I offer myself? She was really happy about it, so was I. And I got in there, but not on a permanent, I'm not in there in an office all day long. I've remained in my roaming environment. But it's been really good, actually. One of the first things I did was get Akram in there, which is great. So I got a win-win out of that. Because, it gave him a chance to redefine himself. It gave her a chance to redefine herself. So that was a wonderful win-win. And then and then I took the company internationally touring, which they hadn't done, and even made money out of it, which they'd never done. So I restructured their value. And then we talked about this whole program coming up called She Said, next month at Sadler's Wells, which we talked about. We want to do a focus on female choreographers and female talent in dance. I don't know when this is going to come out, but it will be announced. I've even managed to get them Pina Bausch's Rite of Spring, which is one of the most iconic works in history, given to the English National Ballet. So these are game changers, all of them.
So you really like to shake things up, don't you?
Of course. Why? I don't want to do it any other way. You know, I feel like I have to be excited by. I'm one of those people who wants. I want to make a difference.
What is it about you that makes people follow you? Because it's not just about being part of creating the idea, is it? You need to be convincing. You need to inspire confidence and excitement in other people. Where does that all come from? And when did you start doing that?
I have no idea.
Did you rally people at school?
I guess, I don't know. I mean, look, people say about me, I project trust, I project hope, I project energy that they feel they can get, that they get enveloped with, and I like that, and it's good if that's what they feel, and it makes people feel they believe. That's important because it's and making people believe in people is really important. People often say believe in yourself and you'll be able to do it, but actually that's not true. You need someone to believe in you. That unlocks you. Where did it come from? I had to work hard when I was a kid to get my way. Find my way, have an identity, have a voice. When I used to run away from home, and I used to be at these train stations, begging for money to, get here and there. I had to learn to be persuasive. I had to go up to people and sell them a story. I had to make them believe me. I think maybe that's a very romantic, but I think some of that stuff came early days. And then when I was at Pepper Harrow, this school, which would use psychotherapy as a means for helping us to kind of rehabilitate ourselves. I was often the person who was invited, when we had lords or Princess Anne come or a politician, they often asked me to be the ambassador because I was comfortable with people. I'm not intimidated by that thing, and I feel I can find a place where we get past the role playing and we become two human beings together. And I think the part of the thing is to feel that way with another person. You shed all the formality. You just be real. And I think people feel comfortable, like I do, certainly.
Who was the first person to really believe in you?
Oh, my social worker, what was that name? Oh, God. I can't believe I've forgotten her name. I had a social worker when I was 14. And the way I described it is that no matter how much I struggled, she never let go of my hand. And I did struggle, and I didn't, because the thing is, when I was young and completely messed up and insecure, I couldn't believe I had something worthwhile in me. And maybe part of this journey in my life is actually trying to prove something to myself, proving that I have worthiness, proving I can make a difference, proving I can give value back. And she saw that in me. She saw a light, and it's like, you need these angels who come along and just hold you and make you believe. And it's a very simple thing. It's love, it's warmth, it's believing. And she did that, and I rejected her, and I swore at her, and I gave her a hard time. Bless her. But she just remained extraordinarily patient. And that's power. That's something special in a person.
Were there other people along your way, along your journey, that did that for you?
Yeah, I mean, I think, I had teachers at dance college who were brilliant. A guy called Ronnie Emblem, who was a ballet teacher, who always believed and made me feel that I could do more. My wife, Suman, when I met her in 32, there was, through someone loving you makes you feel strong. Actually, my daughter fired me up about 5-6 years ago, and she said, what, I know whatever you take on, I know it sounds impossible, but you'll make it happen. And her saying that to me fired me up. And there's a guy called Melvin Rose, who was also the director of Pepper Harrow, who's now a lifelong friend, and always someone I can talk to. And they're like, Akram, dance, people who do amazing things. Arsene Wenger when they play Arsenal, when they play great football. Something that just makes me feel, it uplifts my spirit. It's not just people, actually. It's sometimes life, a moment. I think we look too much for grand statements in things, but I think some of the biggest life-changing moments happen through the tiniest change. I sometimes liken that to when we're trying to trying to correct something in the work or make it refine. It's not making a big change. It's like a radio. Like you just turn it tiny click, and it goes from fuzziness to absolute clarity, and it's the perfect transformation from mess to perfection. And I think sometimes those things happen from those tiny clicks, and maybe an accumulation of lots of tiny clicks in your life make this big click.
What sort of father are you?
I'm good, actually. I was better now than I was when I was younger. And I was never horrible. I mean, I'm close to my daughter. I've got 2 girls, 17 and 11, and they're both very different. And, and because I'm a very passionate human being, and I think sometimes that kind of overwhelms my kids. And especially my older one, who's a lot in the arts, performing arts, she once said to me when I was young, she says, I wish you had nothing to do with the arts. Why can't you be like other parents who just watch and know nothing? Because you always talk about it, and it makes me feel frightened of it. But I find now that, I'm loving, I'm passionate, I'm open, I'm transparent, I'm honest. I think I try to see who they are. I'm getting better, my kids. I always think, if it was me, I try to empathise with them, not just see me as father, them as daughter. I try to look at my daughter like Tianlan, which is the old one, and Tianqing. I see, what would they be thinking and feeling at the moment if I was in their body, in their world? So, yeah, it's good I'm close with my kids, I'm away a lot, so that's not brilliant. If you were to look at it on paper, he's a dreadful father, he's never at home. But actually that's not true. It's not about, being there or not being there, it's about being connected.
Do you dance with them ever?
Oh, yeah. Oh. Akram's wedding, I had to dance on my... It still moves me, actually, but... Yeah, I had to dance with my daughter, I never forgotten it.
What was the music?
I can't remember, it was something kind of funky and stuff, but there was a moment in the party where we all made a circle and everyone was dancing, so I just pulled my daughter and we danced together like...
Lovely. And are they likely to move into dance?
Younger one, no. Younger one's really good at maths and stuff. She doesn't like the arts. And the thing is, young one's adopted from mainland China. So,
I see.
But I'm not saying that's the reason why she's done it. I
Yes,
think, I think sometimes she does it because me, mum, and my older one, my biological child, we're kind of much more connected in the arts, and she maybe see that as her way of being different.
Ah, I see.
Do you know what I'm saying?
Yes,
so,
yes.
So she's more calm and more kind of less, colourful in her emotions, But the old one, yeah, she wants to be an actress. She wants to go to drama college, and she dances, and I support her every step of the way.
Is your wife a dancer?
Yeah, we both met. We're both dancers. That's how we met.
And does she dance now, or is she a choreographer? Or
well, actually,
teaches,
she's a big eye to it. But she when she danced with me, when we both dances have to expire at some point, which usually late 30s, early 40s, and then she was really loved touch, and so she started doing massage and shiatsu, and then she developed a technique for giving women facials with her fingers. Mm-hmm. And now she's one of the most celebrated facialists in the world. She does all the top celebrities. She's got her own cosmetics line. She's invited to the top spas around. I mean, she's got very, very long client list, waiting list. So she's become, out of nowhere, this passion of hers has now become this big idea called Suman. And she's a brilliant teacher, dance teacher for actresses. She trained Juliette Binoche to dance for Akram's show. She trained Frida Pinto to dance for a new movie that's coming out. That's what Akram did the choreography for. She trained Olga Kurylenko for a movie. And she's got a brilliant way of teaching where she just goes in and does it's a bit like wax on, wax off. She gives these people who've not had any dance training the same movements every day for 8 weeks, for 6 hours a day. It looks like nothing's happening. But after about 6 weeks, their whole bodies starts to change, and it's a revelationary. But she's brilliant. That she was a rehearsal director for us for the Olympic Games opening ceremony. We call her in because she's really good with people. But she has her own very successful cosmetics line and brand.
So outside the world of dance, the world of choreography, producing, and family, do you have any other creative interests? And if not currently, aspirations for the future? Can you paint?
No, I'm an awful painter. My daughter's a brilliant painter, but I like to write. And I wrote this little. I was in Abu Dhabi about 7-8 years ago, and I just watched this thing on a video, and I thought it inspired me to write a kind of musical type play. And I just couldn't stop writing this story about characters and everything like that. And then I said to Akram, let's make this into a musical. Let's turn it into a multimedia production. So I sent it to Danny Boyle, and he really liked it. And he came in to meet me. He said, I like this story. something. So, you know, maybe I'll revisit that, you know, involved in... I like to be around in the world of creativity, whether... I'm not a specialist in one. I think I can do a little bit of everything. Like, I understand music, and I won't be a composer, but I like writing. I won't be a writer. But, yeah, maybe I'll direct. I'd like to direct one day, possibly.
A movie?
Movies are frustrating. No, a play. I love theatre more than movies. I think that I've seen the movie process. It's frustrating because everything's shot out of sync. Everything can be masterfully manipulated through editing. You know, great, and you know, music can be a very powerful emotional tool. But but there's nothing more wonderful than the live stage for me.
And do you think that if you do go into that area of the arts, that you would apply the same disruption, shake things up a bit? Yeah, revolution is necessary. I mean, you know, I think I'm a rule breaker rather than a rule maker. You know, and I think I like it. I don't know why I do it. Maybe it's because there's a naughty boy in me that always feels I have to break the rules. That comes from being young, but I find it always at least puts me somewhere new. I don't like it when someone says that's the way something's done. I like the fact is, how can we make that happen? How can we make something done? What rules can we create to do the thing we want to do, rather than what rules exist that we have to work with? And I like that a lot. And maybe that's my small tension with EMB in a way. Because, you know, it's a large organisation, it's a juggernaut, so, you know, I recognise that big organisations have to have systems, you know, and rules, you know, and sometimes I kind of rub up against them, and they know I'm that kind of difficult one. But it's okay, it's become a little bit of a fun game with some of the staff that, you know, I'm a bit of the maverick, that do things, you know, left field and all of that, but that's okay. Coming back to your experience with UK dance, if you were given that role all over again and a free remit to shape things up as much as you wanted to, what would you do to find the best talent and to fire them up, as you said at the beginning of the interview?
Well, we could have done anything more to do, because as Dance UK chairman, we were a voice. You know, we were not, you know, we were like at arm's length to a lot of things in many ways, and so all we can do is talk to people and make them understand that, you know, we are in an industry, we want the very best dancers in the world coming from this country. We want to work with them. I mean, if I made it my lifelong mission and someone gave me a dance school to run, and I have thought about that occasionally, you know, how would I change the way it's run? How would I, you know, restore energy and vision and a sense of purpose, which means that this organisation, like the one I used to go to Place back in the 80s or 70s, was totally it was like this golden land where people went and came out as superheroes. And I'm getting very romantic, but that's what I want. Well, how do you put that sense of culture and values into an organisation and work to change? That means a total dismantling of everything that exists, I'm afraid.
So you set up this new school. Speaking hypothetically, you've dismantled the way in which the school system works within ballet, within dance. Yeah. How do you find talent?
I think finding talent is not difficult. Nurturing talent is harder. You know, how do you get people to be better versions of themselves is always the challenge. Yeah? I mean, if you work in an industry long enough, you'll begin to recognise the signs of talent. You know, and there are various stages of talent. There's the unpolished gem. There's the one who's not even just a seed. There's one who's the finished article. You know, and we've got to recognise that, you know, talent has many aspects to itself. So I think the ideal thing is to see it as a forest. You know, you need big, beautiful oak trees, you need beautiful flowers, and they all work as an ecology. So recognising that you don't want a forest full of 500 oak trees exactly the same size, that's boring. And it needs something that feeds and learns. It's dynamic, and there's an exchange, and people are learning from each other. So finding talent is one. I think what I've learned from working in dance, where you achieve extraordinary things, where the best people work with the best people. But that ain't enough. They've got to also share common values. They've got to like each other. They've got to trust each other. They've got to have something that you see that you don't have. But you know, working together, you want to create something new. It's not an opportunity to show off and be vain, or to let your ego be served, and that alone. I notice in projects which break down was when with the group, the collaborative team are no longer serving the idea, that the idea is beginning to serve them. And that's when failure begins to come in. So the first thing is making sure that people, the best work with the best. There was an example of a school in Belgium where Andrea Macdonald, she started a school called Parts, which is now one of the most successful schools in the world for creating employable dancers. And when she was approached by the Flemish government back in 1990 or something to create this school, because she was a world-famous choreographer, she was Flemish. No Flemish dancers in her company, right? All the other Flemish, there was this Flemish wave, no Flemish dancers in any of the companies. The choreographers were there. So the government wanted to address this. So I said, can you create a school and do something about it? She says, fine, great idea. And the government said, well, it has to come from the education budget. She says, yeah, well, what does that mean? She said, well, we need people who teach them, who have certificates to teach. And we need them to get certificates when they leave. And she said, no, I'm not doing it that way. And they said, why? Because they said the very best teachers in the world don't have those certificates. They're the ones who've been talents their whole lives, been on stage for their whole careers. They've got the experience and the wisdom and the know-how to transform and inspire this young generation. So they said, we can't do that. Well, she won it. There's no certificates. She doesn't have to get teachers who are certified teachers, and now you have one of the best schools in the world.
What is it about the training that dancers receive in that school that makes it so successful, do you think?
I think they're so versatile, because the modern... you have to look at it in a way as a market. And the modern choreographer no longer walks into a studio and teaches steps to a dancer. They expect the dancer to be intelligent, to contribute, to be creative, to improvise, to be an actor, to sing, to be able to body shape shift, to be a mime artist. There's so many demands on the modern dancer, which is amazing. So because we've blurred all those categories now between theatrical and dance and musician. So they're versatile and they're individual. They know themselves. And I think the most important thing about creating a brilliant person is someone who's brilliant but knows themselves. Because where you lose out is someone who's brilliant but they don't know themselves. Because that is the package of that's how you turn competence into brilliance. You get someone who's brilliant, who's got the skill but also knows themselves. And that package makes an extraordinary person.
Is there anything, including the Belgian dance company, that you have spotted as something that could be introduced into the training of a dancer?
Oh, yeah.
So a certain something.
Yeah.
That nobody else has done.
Yeah, I've something. I'm a big fan of Chinese traditional dancing. I think it's beautiful. I went to Beijing Dance Academy and watched these kids in a modern class. I thought, oh, that looks old-fashioned and dull. Then I went into this class which did Mongolian, Tibetan, and they looked like modern dancers. They were so free and gestural. It was so I've said, why don't they introduce that into the curriculum? Shake it up by introducing a different cultural style into the training. So the body does not become it has to have another cultural language into itself. And one of the beautiful things that Akram says, and it's really revealing in his style, he says, I started as an Indian classical dancer. Then I learnt contemporary dance, and my body became confused. Now, rather than control that intellectually, he let it make its own decisions, and it brought out a new language. I think shaking that thing up so we're not so culturally specific anymore in terms of training is a way to shake up the way that education. So, I said to the place that you should have Chinese dancing and get some really brilliant teachers. You'll be surprised what it does to the bodies of your dancers.
And presumably also to their minds, their spirits.
To their minds and their spirit, understanding the energy of... See, the world has got different energies. In the West, we're very much about resistance, the individual, fighting back, and without getting caught into cultural stereotypes, and forgive me if I am, but it's the only way I can do it in 2 sentences, is that in Asia there's this energy where people absorb energy, they surrender to something, so they become at one with it. They connect with it, and so they don't resist it. And that's how they have their revolutions. That's how they make change. They transform it. It becomes look at India over the years, it absorbed the Brits, the Moguls, and it never stopped being India. It just manifests itself in a slightly different way. The Chinese, if you look at Chinese culture, how it's had one civilization that's transformed many times rather than 10 civilizations that conquered the other one. And there's something wonderful about this. And it's something wonderful about the way we live about that. We can reinvent our version of ourselves. We don't have to smash ourselves to bits. So this combination of resistance and surrender, fighting, we have to find that lovely balance. And I know that's a bit convoluted, but I think something in the training needs to exist there. It's becoming, the I, the we, the me, all at the same time.
If you were on your travels, maybe on holiday, and out of the corner of your eye you see somebody dancing in the street, maybe somebody 12, 13, boy or girl, and you see in the blink of an eye an amazing talent, what would you say to them?
Wow, that's I think if I go over and say something to them, it'd be a bit patronising. It could come across like that. I'm a really famous producer, works in a dance company, you're really talented, I think you should do this.
Yes.
And suddenly, things have to grow. The thing about human beings, about creativity, it has to grow and listen to itself to know where to go next.
Yes.
So that young talent has to listen to it. I wouldn't interfere then, too early. But I had this really lovely, we talk about stories about, my daughter goes to a drama college, and one of the girls in the drama college loves dance, and the parents, and she said the parents are concerned that she's a bit too rigid, too controlling of herself. So they said, could we do something with her? I said, look, I'll come in and spend an afternoon with my wife. And we went in and we worked with this girl who was 13. She was incredibly brave. And it was so nice to give her tiny little things she could go away with that unlocked little bits inside herself to feel more herself. It wasn't about being a better dancer, it was about her being herself. She's trying to be something outside of herself rather than be within, and she's trying to do it right rather than do the right thing, and she's trying to be something that she sees rather than something that she bees, if you know what I mean. So I don't think you want to, if they come up to you and ask you, someone, and I'm always happy to give suggestions, and I say, I always like to see them dance and say, tell me a show and I'll see it, or have you thought about this, or what do you like watching? But I think people like more than anything for you to share common experiences. When did you start? What shows do you like seeing? And and I sometimes invite some kids to see some of my daughter's friends to see our dance shows, and it changes their life.
To potential future dancers who aspire to being members of the Akram Khan Company, what would you say to them now?
Take risks, be truthful, don't fake it, know who you are, go to that place where you're most frightened of going, physically, emotionally, but we do, we get these young dancers, come along, and it's a joy for me. It's one of my biggest joys, actually, is that, when we find these young kids, and sorry to use that, they're like 18 or 9, they just come up, and 5 years later they become stars. They exude this brilliance. But we saw it, and no one else saw it, and we got a chance for them, and I feel like a proud dad. When they go, like Qin Yin, the one we got now, and Until the Lions from Taiwan, we saw in 2011 in Hong Kong, and in January 2016, the press can't stop raving about this little genius. That makes me feel good.
Farooq Chaudhry, thank you so much for your time.
Pleasure.